Hello and welcome, fellow lifelong learners. Thanks for joining me for One More Thing, a radio show all about cultivating our most valuable asset, our mind, and fostering a sense of curiosity to learn one more thing. We feature passionate practitioners and seasoned experts in numerous areas of interest for lifelong learners of all ages. One More Thing is sponsored by Kiffin & Company, a corporate learning and talent development consulting firm, and I'm your host, Kiffin McCoy Albert, a certified professional in talent development, learning advocate, and your fellow lifelong learner. Welcome to the show. It's Thanksgiving week here in the United States, and this holiday is one of, if not the most, known for overeating. There's usually so much food, and much of it is so-called comfort food, aka unhealthy, with lots of butter, gravy, cheese, etc. So it may seem kind of funny to have an episode all about raw vegan eating. However, I know that after the holidays such as this, I often reevaluate my life choices, or at least my food choices. So maybe my conversation with a raw vegan certified chef and chocolatier will give us all a little motivation to purify our bodies through food, or at least educate us on how to take some baby steps towards alternatives that are just as tasty as what we're used to. We'll be right back to talk with Tracey O'Hara after this commercial.
Maximize impact with tailored solutions by partnering with Kiffin & Company. Developing your team is an investment, but it doesn't have to be just an expense. Discover more at kiffinandcompany.com and start your journey to effective learning today.
Hey everybody, I am back with Tracey O'Hara. So on the previous episode, I had a conversation with Tracey around breath work and mindfulness. She is a certified practitioner of and teacher of multiple yoga practices, specifically Kundalini yoga. And we had this great conversation. And this part two, we're really focusing on another aspect of her life, which is on the raw vegan I don't know, lifestyle, I guess it might be the right way to say it. But Tracey is a certified raw vegan chef and raw chocolatier. And so I'm excited to hear about how she made that transition and how, what does it mean to be a raw vegan chef and raw chocolatier? So Tracey, welcome back for part two of our conversation.
Thank you. Thanks, Kiffin. Nice to be back.
Yeah. Well, I think probably the first question people would say or would want to ask is, how did you transition to be, why and how did you transition? And then how do you do it in this world that we live in of processed everything?
It's a really good question. I'm going to kind of circle back to the first episode on breath work. The more you have a tendency to do this kind of work with yourself, breathing techniques, and the more you purify your body and your mind, the more purification you desire. It's kind of an interesting story about how I woke up to applying raw food into my diet. For many years, I was a yoga teacher, as you know, and people kept saying to me, "Oh, are you a vegetarian? Are you a vegetarian?" I'm like, "No, why would I be a vegetarian? You know, why? Why do you keep asking me that?" Then, as I said, the more I did the breath work, the more I did my practice, the more clarification came. I did a lot of dinner parties, and I was a chef, a pastry chef prior to this, which uses a lot of butter, a lot of sugar, a lot of eggs, and I enjoyed that. I enjoy feeding people. So I was having a dinner party one night, and I was making this lasagna that had the kitchen sink in it. There was sausage in it, and meat in it, and cheese in it. I mean, you name it, it was in it. And I had this epiphany during my breathwork practice. I said, "Oh my God, I'm going to kill these people." Because I had this vision where I was like, I was clogging their bodies with all this fat and stuff. So I immediately called my friends and said, "Oh, well, I think we need to take a walk after dinner because there's just too much going on in that food." And they just kind of laughed at me. They laughed at me, and I was like, "Well, I don't know if I should do this." And they laughed at me again. And one of them said, "Well, I'll just take a Pepcid AC." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's crazy thought, right? We need to take medicine after we gorge ourselves with food." I was like, "Oh, that doesn't sound right." So I did the dinner party. And again, I'll tell you, I had an epiphany. And I said to my husband, "Okay, I'm cleaning out everything in our kitchen. from the freezer to the pantry to everything in the kitchen, and we're going raw. I didn't even know what that meant, but I knew it was where I needed to go. Not going to say it was an easy transition. Nothing I do is an easy transition, but for your viewers, I would say keep it small. You don't have to clean out your pantry in one day and give all your food to all your neighbors. So that's how I started with this journey. And how I started in the raw chocolate is that I didn't like chocolate, but my husband did. And I wanted to go from soup to nuts. I wanted crackers. I wanted everything that we ate, the old style of eating, the regular way of eating. I wanted to duplicate that in a raw manner. So when it came to the chocolate, that was complicated, but I was able to process it and buy the machinery for it. And now I make raw chocolate delights, which are just amazing. It's better than any chocolate I've ever had out there. And I didn't like chocolate. I did not like it. Anyway, got a little away from myself.
Probably some of our listeners are like, what do you mean you didn't like chocolate? Like, I wish I didn't. But I think about that. I love chocolate, and my husband, I mean, he likes it. It's fine. But he, if we're out to dinner or something and for a special occasion and we're going to order dessert, I can guarantee you that whatever the chocolate dessert, that's what I'm choosing. And if there's a cheesecake, that's what he's choosing, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So creatures of habit that way. But so when let's stick with the chocolate for a second. So you mentioned that you bought the machinery and all. And when I mentioned to a friend that you were a raw chocolatier, and the first thing she said was, what does that mean? Okay, so if it's raw chocolate, so I'm guessing organic chocolate, she get the cocoa, like she's really like thinking it through. And then I said, well, and I guess when I think about it, that with raw, it's either not heated, but you got to melt it somehow, what is it? And so I guess it's just a really low heat. So will you share with us, like,
Right.
what does it mean to be a raw chocolatier? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, it's a great question, because raw means that you're taking anything to the temperature of 115 below. You don't go anything more than 115. So when it comes to the chocolate, I bring it to 107. Then I temper it, which means I drop it down to 84, and then I bring it back up to 87. So it is raw in its own right. It's not overheated. And it's, you don't overheat it. And the sugar that I use to sweeten it is palm sugar. I don't use white sugar. And there is a difference in the draw to the sweetness, to where you don't create that craving like the white processed sugar. Again, in my chocolates. So what I fill my chocolates with is, which I call raw chocolate delights, because they are outstanding, because I use natural ingredients, meaning nuts or seeds or berries, all things that are natural. I make my own butters, like a pecan butter, a hazelnut butter, coconut butter. I use a lot of coconut. When you use coconut, it's actually very fulfilling. And I make my milk. So I'll make an almond milk or an oat milk or a coconut milk. I don't use a milk machine, which I probably could, but I don't. I use what's called a Vitamix. I purify the nuts till they're actually liquid, almost liquid. And then I'll drain them in a milk bag. So you're just squeezing it out. And so those nuts that you are going to throw out, I'll make them into crackers. So I'll dehydrate them, and then I'll flavor them with herbs or sun-dried tomatoes. Sun-dried tomatoes are amazing. I can actually make a meatball that really tastes like a meatball out of walnuts, sun-dried tomatoes, thyme, sage. There might be something else in there too. And then you roll them together, dehydrate them a little. They're amazing. You can mimic the taste of meat with nuts or mushrooms.
I'm in Middle Tennessee and you're in South Florida. And the more and more that we talk, I'm wishing that we were close enough that I could come to dinner parties. Be like, Tracey, I'll bring, I don't know, I'll bring this, or I'll bring the ingredients if you tell me what to bring, if you'll do these things. Because all of that sounds amazing. You said you didn't use a milk machine, but you use a Vitamix. But what types of things are the staples that someone might want if they're going to, invest in maybe two things? What are the ones that you would suggest?
A dehydrator, which is probably under $100. You can get two different sizes. A dehydrator for sure, because you need to dry certain things, but you don't take it over a temperature of 115. That keeps it raw. a milk bag if you want to make milks. I do it the old-fashioned way, but you can buy a milk machine. And a spiralizer is pretty cool because you can make the pastas out of the zucchini or the yams or
Mm-hmm.
those type of vegetables that are soft. So yeah, I wouldn't go crazy with, until you know you're going to do it. So keep it simple and then figure it out from there. If you want to go forward, then buy a book on it. Absolutely buy a
Yeah.
book on it.
And through YouTube and Instagram, I know I've seen tons of videos too. I was telling you about someone that I followed that is really interesting.
Here's what I'd like to really say. Don't go in and jump in to buying high price ticket items until you figure out that you're going to really want to do this. And if you want to do it, then your intuition is going to tell you, I want to pursue it in this direction. Because a lot of people jump into things, wholeheartedly, and they just think that they need all this machinery. You don't. You don't.
Right.
Really, raw is raw. Raw is basic food. That's it.
The videos and stuff that I've been watching, and most of them, they are using some sort of a machine, but it doesn't seem like it's overly hard. It just, especially if once you get used to doing it. But I think you told me that, like with the chocolate delights that you make, that those are very time consuming, labor intensive. Is that one of the only things that you make that's really labor intensive, or is a lot of what you do more involved in labor and time intensive?
I also want to throw out there, I didn't mention a juicer. A juicer is always a great tool. Let me just put that in there. That's a great tool to juice vegetables. But if you want to go raw, you can keep it simple to a salad. Or if you want to go and really create a recipe book of what you really want to have for options, it's going to be time consuming. But you can prep your stuff, make a lot of it, like when I do carrots or bread or, the milks, you just spend some time, make a lot of it, and then be able to store it. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that it's not work intensive. And then the whole learning curve, I mean, it's probably much easier now because there is YouTube. I didn't have YouTube when I started doing this. I did it all on my own through books. You have to want to do it or go out and buy it or keep it simple and just, do salads.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you that it's not a whole mindset. The whole mindset thing was real. You really had to focus in it. I also want to throw out there that when you do go raw, you stop eating the stuff that's chemically treated and through boxes and bags. Your tongue changes. In 10 days, your taste buds cleanse themselves out. So where you can taste things differently. They taste more pure, intense. So that's kind of an interesting tip for people to know. Salt tastes different. Sugar tastes completely different because we've cleansed the tongue.
I don't have any plans or desires, I guess I would say, to go full raw vegan, but I would definitely like to incorporate more raw and vegan aspects into my life. And I think about it from the aspect of it being more real, unprocessed foods more than the quote raw vegan, but it kind of goes hand in hand. So when you did it, it sounds like you went all in 100%. But if you had it to do over again, would you ease in and just do some stuff, or do you think you would have jumped in anyway?
That's a good question. I'm pondering that in my mind because I'm an all-in self-learner. But that's just who I am. But I would say for the audience, I would start with nuts, and I would start with eating nuts. And again, if they wanted to buy a dehydrator, because that's really valuable if you want to go raw. Start soaking nuts and dehydrating nuts, because when you soak a nut, and then you dehydrate it. First of all, if you just soak a nut, you take the number one, the toxins and the enzymes that hurt your stomach if you're eating nuts. So we're going to take that out. I would start with nuts. I would start with sprouts. I would start with beans, soaking your beans, like mung beans, pickled vegetables, pickles, or what's it called? It's like a sauerkraut is great as a probiotic for the stomach. So, and even making, like, maybe if you wanted to make pastas, noodles out of the zucchini and that type of thing, it's kind of an easy way to start. See if you like it. A great way to mimic meat is through nuts and lentils. You are going to have to soak and maybe boil the lentils a little bit, but sometimes you have to have a play. To go 100% raw is very complicated at first.
To your point, you know that you can start to replace some of the
Yeah,
meats with things like portobello mushrooms. Like I hear
yeah.
that all the time, right?
I did that a lot.
Or using nuts and things like that. Are you saying that you can do meat tasting meatballs, quote unquote, but with sun-dried tomatoes and I think you said walnuts?
Walnuts and some herbs like sage and thyme. You'd be amazed at what you can create. Buy a simple, easy, dumb it down cookbook. Go
Yeah.
through it. See what resonates with you. See what doesn't resonate. I really would suggest doing something small because for the most part, if you start buying all this stuff and you feel like it's too time consuming, can't do it, then you've just wasted a lot of money on stuff that you're going to put in your closet. Just buy a cookbook
Yeah.
that teaches you the ins and outs of going raw and see what works. I'm an extreme person. When I do something, I want to know it and learn it, and then I want to teach it. That's just the makeup of myself. I'm not going to advertise that for everybody else out there. If it sounds like you want to do it, buy a cookbook. Just like I said with the breath work, if it sounds like you want to do it, buy a book. Don't rely, when it comes to breath work, don't rely on all the stuff that you see on YouTube. Go to a book.
Yeah. Yeah, even with the recipes that you may find on YouTube or Instagram or something, and then it's a try it out and see if you like it. So how did you determine, or how did you make sure that you were getting enough protein and nutrients? Was that something that you kind of calculated, or did you just know these things are high in protein, so I want to make sure to
I did.
incorporate them?
I want to suggest for any of your guests, if you want to bring in the minerals that we're lacking, what I make, and I still make it, it's called sea moss, and Irish sea moss specifically. So that you can make that into a gel and keep it in your refrigerator and flavor it with fruit. What you do is you buy the sea moss, you soak it, and it kind of smells sea mossy, so don't be disturbed by the smell. Soak it, keep rinsing it for like 24 hours. It's going to expand. Put it in, drain it, put it in a Vitamix or a blender, blend it up, throw some water in there to make it blend, throw some fruit in there, throw it in a ball jar, put it in your refrigerator, take a tablespoon of that every single day. You'll get 92 of the minerals. We need 102 minerals every day. 92 of those minerals are in that sea moss that's sitting in your refrigerator if you do it. Do it every day. You'll see tremendous differences. That's raw. Start with that.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, very
And you
cool.
can get the recipe and see how people do it on YouTube. It's very simple. It's one, two, maybe three ingredients max.
Oh my gosh, my mind's going 90 miles an hour thinking about all the different things I want to ask. But one of the things I want to go back to is you mentioned that you do your own nut butters. Is that a time-consuming process to do? And even if it is, it seems like that's something that you could make in pretty large quantities because it will be, I don't know, shelf stable, the right word,
Yeah,
versus some things I know, like when you juice, you really should juice and drink it nearly
yeah,
immediately. But so with the nut butters, is that something that someone could kind of maybe that's their focus in the beginning and start
yeah,
replacing the store-bought things?
for sure. So what you would do is you would soak a certain amount of nuts. I'd say for myself, I mean, soak 2 or 3 cups of nuts and see where that brings you. Soak them for 24 hours, drain them, put them in a Vitamix or something that's powerful mixer. Even if it's got a round barrel to it, it's kind of probably better. And then grind it up and pour a little coconut oil in there that's melted just to give it some fluidity inside of there. And you can flavor it with some cinnamon, some nutmeg. That's easy. So I have what's called a stone grinder. The reason I have that stone grinder is because I grind my cacao beans in the stone grinder. But that's an expensive machinery. I also make my butters in that because it's, I have it. But you can make butters in your Vitamix or your Ninja, any type of it has to be a high powered blender. I think
Okay.
most of them out there today are pretty high powered. That's simple. And you just put it again in a ball jar and you can keep it in the refrigerator or I keep mine in the cabinet, but it's in a ball jar. It's got to really be tight.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The flavor is going to be different. I go to my sister's house and she has Jiffy. I'm like, oh, I tasted it. It was like, whoa, wow, there's a lot of sugar in that. And
Yeah,
it's going to
I
be
haven't
different.
Yeah, I haven't bought regular peanut butter like that. Well, first of all, I don't do peanuts anymore because of the high inflammatory properties of peanuts, but
Oh, okay.
I do. I actually have for the last probably 2 years or so, I've done sunflower butter.
Oh,
And and I do buy it from the store, but I buy specifically the unsweetened one. And I went somewhere recently and had I think it was an almond butter. Still wasn't peanut butter, but it was almond butter. And I was like, oh my gosh, there is sugar, and I think there's sugar in this. Like it was overly sweet.
they want to sell it.
Tracey O'Hara is a certified Reset It specialist. Reset It blends ancient teachings with modern mindfulness practices, neuroscience, and quantum physics during two 90-minute sessions. Reset It is a transformative process for personal growth designed to help individuals achieve radical evolution in their lives. With the Reset It method, Tracey teaches her clients a simple method to break free from the chains of those negative attachments, break those barriers, and level up their mindset for a happier, more productive, and creative life. Contact Tracey to reset, re-own, and restart your life today. Tracey, Tracey, at reset-it.ca. And learn more about the Reset It method at reset-it.ca. Okay, so gosh, our time is just so flipping fast. I want to go back to one other thing, and that is, so let's talk for a second about kind of the easiest things to transition. So number one, or the things to use in this transition. So number one is nuts. Like that's a huge one that you talked about. You also talked about using vegetables like zucchini, sweet potatoes to make things like pasta and whatever. So you've got some different things there. Sun-dried tomatoes, you mentioned those as
Yep.
being good. What are one or two other kind of staple items that would be great to start using in your transition?
Chia seed is nice because you can make a nice dessert out of chia seed. If you just pour an almond milk and a chia seed into a ball jar or a bowl and let it sit for a while, then it absorbs and it becomes a really nice pudding. You can flavor it with fruit or a low sugar jam. You can flavor it with that and put some nuts on it, flaxseed. That's really nice. That's a great way to start as well because it's a sweet treat.
You're making me think. I had forgotten about a recipe that I knew of a few years ago that I haven't made in years, which was an avocado chocolate pudding.
Yes. Oh, you can make, yes, yes, yes. I forgot about that too. Yep. Avocados are fantastic. It's like a tofu, which I don't use tofu, but it's got you can add anything to it and make it really flavorful.
Yeah. And then lastly, with sweeteners, I don't use bleached white sugar anymore. I'll use pure cane sugar, organic pure cane sugar on rare occasion. Mostly if I'm using like a granulated, I'm using coconut sugar. But I also know that maple syrup and honey, those two are big ones. But one that I've learned, I guess I've heard about it for a long time, but one that this person that I follow on social media, they use dates in a lot of things. Is that something that you use as well for sweetener?
Yeah, I add that into my chocolates as well. Dates and figs, you soak them, you let them get very moist, and then you can pulverize them or just eat them. Dates are great for a sweetener, as like I said, figs are too.
And do you buy your ingredients like your figs and dates and zucchini, whatever, just at the regular grocery store?
If I'm in a pinch, yes, but I do use nuts.com a lot, and there's other websites out there that are pretty easy to use now. Again, I've been doing this for what, 15 years? 15 years ago, everything was difficult to find. So I started with nuts.com. I still use them, but there's a lot of different websites out there. If you can't get it at home in your home area, I would reach out through a website.
And I do want to mention, I think you told me that you are not 100% raw vegan right now. You
Right.
have been, but not at the moment, but still do a lot of it. Is there anything around the raw vegan food stuff that you're learning?
I'm kind of in a place right now where I'm really fulfilled. As I said in the last one, I'm really learning about the brain and how to manifest in a very simple, easy way. I'll be starting to teach that in the new year of 25. And that's kind of where I'm at. I've done a lot of studying, a lot of research. I've got a lot of information within inside of me that I'm pretty content right now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's an amazing place to be.
Yeah, I'm really content, and I'm really happy that you asked me to be on and to share all that I've studied and that I'm passionate about. I hope people just take it slow, pick up a book, read about it, see if it resonates, and like you just do little things here and there that are raw and see where it takes you.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps with this. It's hard to change a whole lifetime of eating.
My biggest takeaway today is sun-dried tomatoes. I
Yep,
had no idea. I'm so excited to learn more about using sun-dried tomatoes
they're
in
such a good flavor
multiple.
additive.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, well, thank you again so much for spending not only one episode talking about your area of expertise in breathwork, but then also this passionate area around raw vegan food. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kiffin. Thanks to your audience for listening, and thanks to you. It's going to be it's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, y'all know that I always end the show with a tie back to workplace learning and development. And I admit that I really struggled with this one, but ultimately I realized that there was one really important and simple correlation: the concept of taking baby steps when trying something new. Often, organizations try to make big, sweeping changes when they would be better served to make small, incremental changes, gaining buy in and establishing understanding and getting to a state of proficiency with each step before moving on to the next. And I realize that this is not always possible to draw out a series of changes or a new training initiative. And if that's the case, making sure to communicate early and often with small amounts of information that build upon each other towards that bigger picture can also do wonders for effective learning, performance improvement, and overall behavior change. Simple as that. I want to say thank you again to my guest, Tracey O'Hara, and thank you to Tracey for her sponsorship with her Reset It, Reset, Reown, and Restart. And as always, thank you all for continuing to listen week after week. You've been listening to One More Thing, a radio show on the Power Me Up radio station on iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Kiffin McCoy Albert. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to you tuning in next time as we continue cultivating your mind with one more thing.
So, organization is a big skill when it comes to raw foods. Organization and prep. Organization and prep. It's forethought, organization, and then you prep it, and then you do it, because you have to piecemeal things, because you have to soak for 24 to 12 hours, right? Your nuts. Then you have to dehydrate them for probably a day. Then it's putting it all together. Same thing with the chocolate. So it's really a lot of organization. So if I'm just going to be really truthful here, if you don't have organizational skills, go buy it. Because it's just not going to, it's going to make you crazy. It's going to drive you mad. Then you're going to say, oh, forget it. And you're going to give up on it. But just, I'll say it again, buy a book, understand what goes into it, thought, organization, prep. Because you have to go out there and buy it, and then you have to bring it in, and then you have to time measure it. It can take me weeks to make some chocolate. Weeks.
Wow, weeks to make a batch.
Yeah. Because it takes me 3 days just to grind the chocolate. 3 days of stone grinding. That's 72 hours. It's just that. Then you have to prep it for the tempering of it, which takes time, and it's an exact science. So again, it's full focus, prep, organization. And then for the fillings of the chocolate, that can take weeks again.
Yeah, what do you put in them? What's in the filling?
I put figs, there's dates, there's coconut. I use a lot of coconut. I've kind of mastered the almond joy with coconut. That I make a lot of. Oh God, every time I come into this question, I kind of pause. I can't remember the ingredients, but it's the nut butters. It's the chocolate itself that I make into ganaches. It's the berries that I make into a filling, like raspberry filling with a ganache. That's raw. I make a ganache with water, not cream. It's all this different. Yeah, it's a lot of coconut. It's a lot of dates. It's a lot of figs, orange, ginger. Those are really great ingredients. And I use a specific essential oil sometimes to flavor specific things, so it's a little bit more intense. Um, Groats. I use a lot of groats to come up with crunch. A lot of almonds to come up with a nut base. So as you can hear, it's a lot. It's not something you pull out of your cabinet.
What in the world? You just said a word I don't think I've ever heard in my life. A groats?
A groat.
What
Groat
is
is an
it?
oat.
What is a groat?
Groat is very hard. It's actually, I think it might be the base of an oat. I'm not quite sure, but it's groats. It's a very hard seed, and then you soak them, and then you can blend them, or you can heat them up, or you can dehydrate them. And I use that in what one of my, I call Nestle Crunches chocolates, because I put it in there and it gives it a nice crunch.
So it sounds like you take mainstream candy bars and make
Yes,
an alternative. Oh my
I
gosh.
do. I
I'm gonna
try to
send you
mimic
my
them.
list of
Right, like I just told you about the Butterfinger. I mastered a Butterfinger yesterday. That's been on my mind for a really long time. So
man.
yeah, it's peanut butter, but that one does have sugar in it because I had to make a toffee. Not a lot, but it gives it that crunch.
Yeah. Okay, so I am gonna make a trip to South Florida at some point, and I'm hoping to taste your version of Nestle's Crunch and Almond Joy and Butterfinger. Three of my favorites.
Yeah, they're good ones, right?
Get a
Well,
Snickers, and you got the whole gamut.
yeah, I do a caramel too. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, that sounds amazing.